welcome to Her Story, the podcast that brings to life the stories of incredible women throughout history. Each episode uncovers the remarkable lives, achievements, and struggles of women who shaped the world, beyond the textbooks and headlines. Join us as we celebrate their legacies and inspire new generations with tales of courage, resilience, and trailblazing spirit. In today's episode, I am delighted to welcome onto the podcast Elizabeth Goff to discuss her first ever book, Bloody Brilliant Tudors, 100 Tales of Gowns, Gossip and Gory. Elizabeth Goff is a rising TikTok star, running a successful history page under the Historical Gal handle, exploring all the lesser-known, juicy sides of the historical characters you know, and also the hidden figures that are just as fascinating, if not more so. Elizabeth has studied history for most of her life, with a deep, entrenched love for the ever-epic Tudor dynasty. There isn't a historical site that's not been visited or a museum that's been missed when she's nearby. Elizabeth lives in Hampshire with her husband and daughter, spending time creating content, always writing and enjoying a lovely country pub. Bloody Brilliant Tudors is her first book. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the podcast, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm looking forward to today because we are discussing your first ever book, Bloody Brilliant Tudors, 100 Tales of Gowns, Gossip and Gory. But before we discuss your book, I thought we could talk a little bit about yourself. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, my background is that I have always loved history, and it's come from my dad, who was head of the history department. So he was always taking us out on day trips, like with my mum and my brother. We was like going to the historical reenactment days and all those things around the local areas. So we just enjoyed it so much. It was just such a wonderful thing, and that was from when I was really little. So like 4, 5, 6. That was just when it kind of ignited. And it's just like rolled on from there, really. It's just been an absolute passion and love. And when I came across TikTok and I was watching videos of things that weren't necessarily correct or right, or things, or I could share things like that, and there is a space for people to enjoy this as well. So I created the Historical Girl handle and page and created these little videos of things that I found interesting, in the hopes and in the thought of perhaps other people might find them interesting as well. And thankfully they have. They're sort of like the more like little tidbits, I suppose, some of the stuff and things that maybe people don't know about as much, or aren't as, other than like Anne Boleyn and Henry and Elizabeth the First. There's like other bits and bobs between the lines, and that's what I like to kind of delve a bit deeper into.
Are you still loving TikTok? Because it's quite a journey on there at the moment, isn't it, TikTok?
Oh, it's so hard. It's really difficult, because especially when you try really hard for certain things and certain videos, and then you get, dinky views and stuff, it's really, really disheartening. And it's, with everything that's going on in the world and things, it's quite difficult to navigate. But I'm just kind of, what to say, plodding along, but that doesn't sound very great. But I'm still enjoying creating my videos. I will just keep going and creating them, but trying to navigate how they slot into the algorithm is, oh my gosh, it's hard work to try and get them kind of out there and seen. But I did one. It's so funny. I did one on, because I kind of branch out kind of either way between pre-Tudors and post-Tudors. And I've done a couple of things with the Stuarts before, and they've not really done much. But I've done one on what happened to Charles the First's body after he was executed. And that randomly has kind of soared through and done really, really well. So don't know if it's the gore or whatever it is, I don't know what, but people clearly enjoyed that. And it's about Charles the First, who hasn't really sparked any interest in anyone before. So the answer to your question is I'm at a loss. No, I don't know I don't know how I'm navigating through it. It's just happening. It's just kind of I just keep plugging on through and hoping for the best.
What was the inspiration for this book? Did it come directly from what you were doing on TikTok and Instagram?
Definitely, that was it was I kept getting asked the question, do you have a book? Do you have a podcast? Do you have a book? And it was such I was like, oh my God. And I think it's always been a thing I've wanted to do, to write a book. I've started writing a fiction book, which I was really enjoying, but then I didn't have the time when the page started to go really well, the historical gal page. So I kind of dropped that. And people just kept saying, I'd love to read, to read these stories rather than have them online. And especially with the when TikTok kind of was banned in America, then it came back. Lots of people said, I'm so sad that you don't have like a published work or a podcast that I can still kind of listen to you with. So that just really got me in the mood. I was like, I can do this, and I'm really, really old fashioned. I write everything for my story. I write it all down. I write longhand, and I have like notebooks after notebooks after notebooks filled with my research. And so I kind of had the bones and the structure of the book already there. So when speaking to the publishers and things, it was like, well, I've got the stuff. I need to like or rewrite and go deeper and bigger in the stories, but the kind of the structure is there, so we can really kind of go gung ho with this. And they were amazing. They were really up for it and said, yeah, this is something that we'd like to publish and like to other people to see. So that was really special. But that was kind of where it flowed from. Basically, people saying, do you have a book? And they were the kind of inspiration behind doing it.
How much fun did you have writing this book?
I had loads of fun writing it. I really did. I didn't find it stressful or difficult or hard. It was such it's kind of what I do anyway, and it's what I enjoy doing. That was not so much a problem. It was the biggest thing, and I've spoken about this before, is the editing and the cutting out. That was the hardest thing because you have to go with what your publishers say and what they think because obviously they're the publishers so they know the audience best they know what sells and what doesn't work and what I think very passionate about. They're like, well, you've already said that in this, so let's kind of add this in instead and do this and do that, and they're all totally correct. But when it came down to it, I didn't realize how attached I was to some of these stories and some of these people and these historical events and things. And I was like, but you cannot drop this out because this means that, and then this will not have that. And oh my God, this is such an interesting thing. And people online really like this and that, the other. And like, well, how about if you like thread that through to here and add this in here? I'm like, oh yeah, okay. That was, I think, the most difficult part of the whole process was editing it down to just 100 stories and making sure it covered the whole dynamic range of Tudor emotion from like start to finish. Um, and no one got left out or, not as focused on in things. So that kind of was the biggest kind of head scratching moment. And I was counting up today, like I've got in just on one notebook I was flicking through, I've got I have written it down here. I was counting up stories. I've got as of right now, from one notebook, I got 42 further stories that I could like put in another. So I'm like, I'm ready to go. I'm like, bloody brilliant part two. I'm like, yeah, this, what about this? We can add this, we can do this. So yeah, I just love it. I love the writing process, basically.
Can you tell us about some of the common myths you might have discovered while you were researching the Tudors?
I think this is like a really peculiar answer to it, but from what I've come across is like you think the Tudors were bloody for bloody sake. And I know the book's called The Bloody Brilliant Tudors, kind of calling back to Henry VIII and everything and stuff like that. But they weren't necessarily bloody and gory just because they enjoyed it or got off on it. It was the fact that I really kind of drilling down into it, it was how they showed power as monarchs, how they made their country feel secure by doing these what we would view as dreadful deeds and acts from public executions and hangings and everything. But it was making examples of like the naughty people to ensure that their power remained intact. And so it wasn't necessarily like Henry loved chopping off heads or Mary loved burning people. It wasn't there's so much more behind each incident and each kind of public execution, all these things. I found that really fascinating in the sense that they're just bloody because they loved the gore and it was just how they rolled. It was to make examples of people and to make the kingdom safe. And also, I have a chapter in the book about, an execution day was a great day out and they would just enjoy, they take a picnic. The regular people of London would take a picnic up to Tyburn or to Tower Hill to see the criminal of the day be punished. And that was their way of having a great time. And, it sounds so horrific and awful and it has so much when I do write about these things and do the videos and stuff, everyone's like, that's so disgusting. Oh my God. But it's like, well, guys, like wrestling is watched and Game of Thrones and Ryan Murphy shows, like the bloodier the better, the gorier the better, the body horror, the things that we lap it up. We love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And that's just for entertainment. That's just for because we want to watch it. So when you then look at it, these people have to go anyway in the Tudor world. So they also want to watch and be entertained by it. So it's like a really muddled thing. But that's I think what I felt looking into them was they didn't just do it because they felt like it. There was always purpose behind it, and it was needed in the context of the day. Not that I approve of boiling people and stuff like that, but just when you look at it in the context of their world, I understood it more so than just, oh yeah, they're really bloodthirsty, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. You know, it's so weird that you mentioned about it being an entertainment aspect. 'Cause I was literally talking to my mum today about how it's so weird that at the Tudor times it was entertainment to go watch someone get killed. I honestly was talking
Yeah,
today
and
about that.
it's because it's just such a bizarre concept, isn't it? When you really think about it, you're like, oh my God, you're going to go and watch someone have their life end. But then if they'd done something really bad, you think, yeah, good on Elizabeth getting rid of him, and it's the punishment meets the crime, and blah blah blah. It's such a to really really think about it and get your brain in that headspace of being in the 16th century. I think that's quite mind blowing. I think.
Did you learn anything new whilst you were researching this book?
I think what I really hadn't thought about properly and investigated properly was Elizabeth I's really bizarre relationship with women,
Mm.
in so much that she seemed to really hate them, like really hate them, and punish women when they disobeyed her or did something that she didn't want them to do or whatever it may be. But also, she inspired really devoted love and adoration from other women who would quite literally devote their whole lives to looking after her and ensuring she was safe and happy and healthy throughout the entirety of the rest of their lives. So you think, what a strange combination to have that happen for one monarch and one woman to have that be the case. I find that really kind of something I hadn't really thought about before.
Did you draw any conclusions yourself about why she had such a weird relationship with her women?
Oh, she's a really, and I think that's another thing I also learned. I didn't really like her very much. I was a firm like lover of Elizabeth before, and now I'm like, mm. I really don't know. I think because she could see if anyone got married, if anybody was off living their best life, finding true love, having children, something that potentially she couldn't, wouldn't, didn't want to do. So punishment was meted out because of that. I don't know. It's really, really hard. You look at her, such extreme reactions to things. You like she comes over as unhinged sometimes looking at how she behaved, and she broke a woman's finger because she, didn't brush her hair properly, and she stabbed a serving girl because she didn't serve her properly, and all these awful things. You think, oh my God, like you are meant, like what the hell? Like how can you behave in such a horrific way? And then going even bigger things like how she dealt with the Grey sisters
Mm.
when she punished them both so severely and so kind of life-alteringly. She damned them for the rest of their lives for them doing what they wanted to do with theirs because she wasn't treating them particularly well. And you think, how can you kind of go about with that on your conscience? Um, yeah, I think that her relationship with women is something that I found truly mind-boggling to understand and to try and get hold of and get to the root of why she was like that. If anyone needed like to go and visit a therapist, I would say it was her.
No, but you're right though, because we're like you've got Ashley who is devoted to her, and you've got Blanche Parry and you've got Catherine Knowles. But then you see the Grey sisters where they're persecuted until their death. It's like, what's going on? What have they done wrong compared to Blanche Parry?
It's what? Yeah, and it's again, it's always she always kind of gunned for the Tudor side of her family, the Tudor women rather than the Boleyn women. So is it something to do with that? I don't know, but I can only from as a general overview, it feels like women who were living their lives as they wish to live it in a way in which Elizabeth would never be able to, or she wouldn't allow herself to, I think, and that was the punishment I would suggest from Elizabeth for because they were living a life she couldn't have.
Did you include any Tudor figures that we might not know as well about?
My favorite Tudor woman of all time does have a little time to shine in the book, and it's Penelope Devereux. She is my absolute babe for life. I love her so, so, so much. She is the daughter, well, she's a great granddaughter of Mary Boleyn. So she comes from that line of the family. Her mother was Lettice Knowles, so she was also somebody who'd pissed off Elizabeth I quite spectacularly. But Penelope lived her best life all the time. She did what she wanted to do, and she just, even to the point she was told to marry, and she said no. She had ultimately had to. She went as far as getting to the altar, and she was still saying no, but she ultimately capitulated and did marry quite an unpleasant man, Lord Rich. But she did her duty by him and produced sons and heirs and kids for days. And then she ran off and did and had an affair with Charles Blount quite publicly and very fulfillingly, it seems. She had a great time with him, but still remaining married to Lord Rich. And to have the audacity and the gumption and the balls to behave like that in the Elizabethan court, I think is just so sublime. And I think she's wonderful. I think she's been great fun. When you read about someone, you think, oh my gosh, yeah, I can have a glass of wine with you. You are great. You are she's just one of those people. And you hear about situations and things she said and did, and she was supposed to be incredibly beautiful and incredibly charismatic. Like poetry was written about her. So she was such a vibe the moment, or like whatever whatever people say. She was that, and I think she deserves, like I've said before, she deserves an HBO Stars series, no question. Her and her mum, I think that would be spectacular. She is sadly, sadly, sadly overlooked, in my opinion.
Would you ever write a book on Penelope to give her justice?
Oh, I know. I was saying to the other day, I need to write like write a script for like, I'm so desperate for more people to know about her. I think if I was to go ahead with a research-led book, it would be about Penelope. I just think she is so wonderful. Um, she deserves all of the all of the adulation, I think, from everybody. She's so fantastic. Who would your person be?
Do you know, I'm not sure. There's so many figures I feel in the Tudor period that, uh, ones you just don't know about. Like I really find Catherine Grey interesting. How she did ignore
Oh,
Elizabeth and married Edward and had a kid with him even in the tower. It's like, go good for you. Like, well done you.
and I think yeah, I think again, what what does she think would happen if she started like sleeping with her husband in the tower and stuff? Like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Like it just that's like you just think that's like you want to go back and have a chat with these women and think like, oh my God, like what did you think this would be what would happen to you, or would you change anything? Would you keep it as was? Like it's just so many questions, isn't it? You wish to ask them and you just want them to have like a diary that we could read and be like, I did this because of this reason. Can you imagine?
Oh no, it'd be
Fascinating.
me. The thing I've always wanted to know about Catherine Grey is like what happened to that thing that Edward Seymour supposedly left her while he went abroad. Did someone steal it to set her up, or did she actually just lose it? That's what I want to know. Did she misplace it, or did someone steal it to make it even worse?
Yeah, I think uh I mean I would not be surprised if it was Cecil
Hmm.
in some capacity. That wouldn't shock me. But then from what Catherine sounds like, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of reason that she did lose it. So we don't know, do we? Until we find out I did it because like we can only just guess, which is such a bummer. But we have to fill in the gaps, don't we, in between?
Was there anything you found shocking when you were researching the book that you had to be like, no, this needs to go in?
Um, I think for sheer like well, yeah, I think the only right word is shocking is um Catherine Parr's body a couple of hundred years after she died and what happened to it and what her remains went through. I think I was one of the most shocking things I think I've ever read about. Um, and for people who don't know, like I write about it in the book, but when Catherine Parr she died and was buried at Sudeley Castle, she was the first queen to be privately buried. So she wasn't, in the big cathedrals and everything. She was like locally buried. Then after Civil War and Sudeley Castle was slighted because they supported Charles I, it kind of fell into ruins, and along with it, Catherine Parr's tomb. And it transpired over a series of a couple of years, a couple of hundred years after her death, over a period of a couple of years, she was found, dug up, looked at, put back, dug up, recorded, put back. Things were chopped off of her gowns and her teeth were taken, hair was taken, and then people started to do weird things with her. She became a bit of a tourist attraction. Somebody was hired to rebury her properly, and it ended up they kind of were really quite revolting to her remains and pulled her out and pulled her head off and pulled her teeth out and did really quite foul things. Put her on a rubbish heap, put her back, buried her upside down until eventually, getting more toward the Victorian era, she was reburied. What was left of her was reburied properly, and Queen Victoria did a rebuilt the tomb based, I believe, on a kind of sketch of the original tomb that was there previously. But I've skipped over it there, but the detail of what happened to Catherine Parr was just foul. And I think that was the most shocking and unexpected random thing to have happened to anyone in the Tudors, let alone like one of the six wives. It was the most bizarre and horrifying thing to research.
Yeah, I think it's so. awful what happens to Catherine. It almost sounds like it's made up, but then when you start to research it, you're like, oh my God, it is actually true. This actually happened to a living woman, and people disrespected
Yeah.
that tomb so many times. Like, what's wrong with you people? Like,
I know there was such a penchant for like digging people up. Like I understand. I mean, if I had the opportunity, I don't know if I personally would, but I get the fact in that time they were digging people up and having a check, and I understand that kind of concept behind it. But doing the mutilation and like beyond beggars belief how that was even something that happened. Like truly, I was like my jaw was on the floor going into this research, and I was speaking to the guys at Sudley themselves, and they were kind of retelling the story about it all and stuff. And it's just, and they said, oh, the only positive really is that we have fragments of Catherine from these endless kind of digging up episodes where they have bits of her gown, her teeth, and hair, and bits like that. I don't know what this obsession is with teeth. I was just talking about that with somebody on my page. I don't want someone's teeth. Like I don't like, I don't want to if I am if I want to if I dig up someone, if I was on in the mood to do that, I would look at like jewelry or something if they were wearing some, I would if they were wearing had a nice girdle on or a ring or a fancy headpiece. I would never in a million years be like, I have Anne Boleyn's tooth. You think, what? That, ugh. Like, I don't want. So whenever I see like, these teeth laid out, I'm like, ugh, like hair, I get, but teeth is just foul, in my opinion.
no, I am with you on the teeth thing because there's just something about even when you were saying about like pulling out teeth, I thought I was going to be a little bit sick when you're mentioning that. It's like, no, don't. Like, what?
Is that, it's just,
Why?
oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what would possess him. And like I was just doing a looking, like I said about the Charles the First and what happened to him. They took a finger bone and I think used it in a knife or something like that. And you think, why? I don't want a finger bone. I don't want anything. I don't want any bones from anyone. Like, even if I loved you dearly, I don't want your bones. Like you could like keep them. I don't need it.
That's just, it's so
Grim.
random. I mean, it still bewilders me how we executed a king. I know he's not Tudor, but it's still like, oh, okay. And I don't know, it's just always bewilders me. Like,
Yeah, I think that's what certainly when I was looking into it and stuff, I think that's certainly what the people of England seemed to say after it happened. They were like, "Oh God," like they didn't know why or how it kind of got to that point. All good and well in theory, and then when it actually happens, you're like, "Shit!" Like, like this actually, like with Anne Boleyn, that she was so hated, blah blah blah. But when it actually happened, it was so shocking. Nobody really knew what to do, how to deal with it, what to do, what the right process was, because it's just such a shocking thing. And I think it shows with Charles because when he was executed, his head was then sewn back on and he was buried in like fancy robes and royal regalia. So you think, well, surely the point was to kill him and bring him literally bring him down a peg or two. But you like, why would you then decide to then well put your head back on and put your special clothes back on because that's all what exemplifies kingship. So do you know what I mean? Like such a bizarre concept to be like, take it all away, destroy the monarchy, but yet we will bury you as a king. I think that's just really interesting.
yeah, I think once they did it, they went, oh God, we've actually killed him. And it was also, if we disrespect his body any further, are we just going to get invaded by France, Spain? Like, they're all just going to go mad at us for disrespecting the king.
Oh yeah. Okay, I didn't even think of, yeah, it could be like a visual thing. But I don't don't do it in the first place then. You know, actions have consequences, people.
What obviously in the title you've got gossip. What gossipy bits did you include in your book?
Well, every there's so much gossip, the stories and things like that. I don't know, maybe the biggest bit of gossip, bit of tea would be that maybe Elizabeth the First had a child with Robert Dudley, and Cat Ashley sent him away to live with a nice family in London, and then he went off on a trip and he ended up in Spain and said, "I'm the love child of the Queen and Robert Dudley," and he wasn't really ever mentioned or seen again. But I think maybe the thought behind that, the story behind that of were they close enough? Well, it was certainly their, I say love affair in quote marks, their deep love, admiration, affection for each other, whatever it was that they had, certainly ran very deep. And I think the world was certainly aware of it. So thought that was interesting. I hadn't actually heard of the fact that it was thought that they had a child and she had an illness. Elizabeth had a supposed illness, took to her chamber, had a child, and then it was sent off. And also another part of it was that she had a child with Thomas Seymour, and that was thrown in the fire. And all of these like terrible, that's not so much gossip, that's like a horrific story, but things like that kind of to blemish her virginity, virgin queen state. I think they were probably like the gossipiest tales in that respect. But you can imagine people chatting about it and being like, "Oh, did you know that apparently when she supposedly had this, she was actually having a baby?" I mean, of course, that wouldn't couldn't ever have happened in a million years. We'd all know about it. Um, but I think it's just such like a delicious bit of gossip, to even that people were still, how we used to have, remember like Heat magazine and all those dreadful like rag papers like National Enquirer and stuff. The Tudors had their own like version, Queen's baby up in flames. Like, you could just imagine it, like this salacious, horrible gossip people would spread just because they could.
I mean, I've never heard the Robert Dudley love child. I've read about the Thomas Seymour possible love child, but it is interesting. You can just imagine like a group of women going, "Have you heard? She's had a baby. She's not actually ill."
Yeah.
It's just like, can you imagine?
Yeah. She said she had a headache. Well,
Yeah.
that headache, that is a 7.5 pound baby.
It was
You
a
can see
really
it because
bad headache.
yeah, it lasted 9 months. I think it just proves little things like that. I think just prove, I know they're to discredit her, but they're just that people are still gossipy like
Yeah.
that. I think that was fab. It's the real like our natural human instinct is to gossip. And I was saying to my friend the other day, like, I know that Blake Lively and Taylor Swift look, for their text messages being released, but like the stuff that like everybody does on their phone, like gossiping and texting about people, like I don't know what would happen to me if that was the case. If my phone was like gone through like, because you just chat, isn't it? And it's just, chatty, gossipy things, never ever thinking it would be revealed to anybody else, let alone like court documents and stuff. But I just thought it was so funny and just relating it back to the book, like, did these people know that what they said and what they did would be repeated hundreds of years later?
Did you have a favorite story that you included in the book?
Um, Probably just I think just for the lols. I think it was Elizabeth the First a man. I think I think that it's traditionally known as the Bisley Boy tale. That to me is such a wonderful, clearly insane story, but just so wonderful in the sense that it shows how hard men will work to get themselves back into the narrative of why like Elizabeth was great. Oh, it's because she was a man. I think that's just so fascinating to look at that kind of, we have to discredit her in some way. How can we do that? I know she was switched when she was a teenager to be a boy. Therefore, That's the reason why she ruled so well. That's the reason why she didn't marry. That's the reason why she's so beloved. It's because she was a man. And I can tell you now, only a man would have dreamt up that story
Yeah.
because it's so unbelievably, it's just so implausible and so crazy that it's my personal favorite because it's just so wild. It's in and I think, and because I posted about it before on my page and stuff, and you had people, and most were men, I have to say, saying, yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it definitely explains things. It's like, what? Like this is clearly done as like a comical take, like on the story. And even my publishers, they were like, when I on that entry, the Bisley Boy tale, they said you have to reword it because it sounds like you're stating this as fact, but I was kind of trying to pitch it as like the kind of in a jokey way, like, oh, and then this is what this happened here, and blah blah blah. They said it's too sounds too factual, and people will believe it. So you have to like change up the wording to make it be known that this is indeed a Tudor tale, um, because it came over as like this is the fact. Um, so yeah, I really had to like kind of repitch the story to make it kind of read better, but. I think it's just so wonderful. The fact, like Elizabeth was on the way to the village of Bisley, when she was younger. Henry was between marriages. He wanted to go and visit Elizabeth because there was plague in London. He was on a royal progress. He rocked up to where she was, not knowing that Elizabeth had in fact died on the way. I think she either caught plague or she caught something. Cat Ashley had swapped her with a local village boy who seemed to look a lot like Elizabeth and assumes his voice hadn't dropped or whatever by then. Um, so Elizabeth was swapped out. Elizabeth Tudor is buried in the village church in Bisley, and a young village lad went on to become the Virgin Queen. And Henry didn't notice because he didn't have great eyesight. And when Elizabeth had the faux Elizabeth had like her headdress on, it was very covered up and she looked very, very similar. And it was only a boy because Kat couldn't find a girl that matched Elizabeth, so she had to go with the next best thing. And it was a tale that was covered up for the rest of Elizabeth's life, which is why she didn't want to have an autopsy. That's why she expressly said no to having that, was because she was a man. She didn't marry because she was a man. She had white makeup on because she was a man to hide the stubble. She wore wigs because she had no hair. Blah blah blah. It goes on and on and on and on. But it's just so well thought out. It's just marvelous. I think it's just so wonderful as a story.
I mean, I just think about it as like if Henry VIII found out that Elizabeth ended up being a boy because the actual Elizabeth died, I feel like he'd be really happy. He's like, yeah, you have a son.
Yeah, you just roll with it, wouldn't you? You'd be like, yeah, fine. It's just so haphazard in its essence. I think it was such a pleasure to write about. And I want to go to the village to go and see. I assume there's a grave there or something. There's an unmarked grave. So I'd like to go and see that because I think it'd be quite fun.
Towards the end of the podcast, I like to ask my guests five fun history questions. So, firstly, have you got a historical pet peeve?
My pet peeve is that people worship Anne Boleyn as like a prototype feminist or really pull her down as being this horrific demon woman. And I think it it's forgotten quite a lot that Anne Boleyn was human. She did good things and she did bad things, and that doesn't make her really, really good and really, really bad. She was a human being and she lives somewhere between good and bad, and that's okay. That she that's where most people lie. They have good and bad in them. And I find it really difficult when you can't criticize or praise too much because there's so much kind of blowback from, well, actually, she's a homewrecker. Oh, yeah, but she furthered this, she did that. And so it's such a hard line to kind of walk to just to be more level-headed about her, I think. So that's my biggest pet peeve, that she's either worshipped or really pilloried, and it's I find that really difficult because to you want to just dig down to the real human person rather than being she's not Natalie Dormer. She isn't Genevieve Bujold. She's not any of these people. She is, I think, what lots of people have made up a vision of her in their mind.
Mm,
And I think to try and dissemble that with critique or praise is quite hard.
mm.
Um, so that's my pet peeve. I find that quite difficult to kind of navigate.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously, I love Amber and I love researching and I love talking about her, but I find that you can't be nuanced about her. It's got to be one or the other.
Yeah, it's really, really hard to try and get her. And there's so I mean, even you don't we don't know at the minute exactly what she looked like. And I think that's also difficult as well. I think that adds the difficulty for people because we can't pin our emotions and our feelings on a vision of what she is. I think
Mm.
that's why then it becomes muddled in Natalie Dormer's and Genevieve Bujold's with like that's where we kind of get a bit lost in don't criticize her because she's Natalie Dormer or like don't praise her because she's Charlotte Rampling, who was really bad, in her portrayal of her and stuff. So I think that's what makes it really difficult. But I cannot say how excited I am about the Hever Castle exhibition that's upcoming. I think that's going to be life-changing for Anne Boleyn supporters and lovers.
Don't get me
Um,
started on that exhibition.
oh my God, I need to pre-order the book as well. I've just seen that the link's gone live, I think yesterday. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
It's my Christmas, come early.
Oh, it is. I cannot wait. The little teasers they're putting out from Owen's work and everything. It's like, oh my God, I cannot, yeah, I cannot. I can say. I can't even finish a sentence. I'm so excited.
If you could invite any historical figure to a dinner party, who would it be and why?
Sticking with the Tudors in the theme, I am going to have to say Penelope Devereux, hands down, no question. She would be so, so, so fun. And if I could have two, I'd have her mum, Lettice. I'd have the two of them at a table and we'd have a really, really, really good bottle of wine and a really good chat. I think they'd be loads of fun.
Have you got a favourite book? It can be fiction or non-fiction or even both.
So this is not Tudors, is that okay?
Yes.
This is not historical in any way, but I am an absolutely massive fan of Jilly Cooper. She is my favorite from when I read her as a teenager. Her Rutcher Chronicles were would just they were immense and I love them to this day and I will happily go and reread through the entire series. I loved the Disney Plus show which just brought so much of it to life. I cannot express to you how much I love Julie Cooper's work. I just think she was so amazing as an author and if you've not read them, I can highly recommend them. They're just so good.
I think there's a series two coming out soon, isn't there, on Disney Plus?
Yeah, there absolutely is. Yeah, yeah. I am ready to go. I just, it's such escapism. And I think with the world being pretty crappy at the minute, I think all of us are craving something nice and something lovely. I know I certainly am. And I think that's why I'm really enjoying. Are you watching Bridgerton or not a fan?
I need to watch series three. I've only watched two seasons, but I enjoyed the first two seasons.
Yeah, I think the season four, the one that's just launched now, is not the best. It kind of harkens back to kind of season one and two. I didn't really like season three, but it's such like an escape. It's just lovely houses. It's just lovely people being lovely. Like love it. And it's such a different world and it's so peaceful. I think it's peaceful to be in. And like my husband's really into Yellowstone and I'm sort of sat like doing my writing or research reading and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just so miserable. I know it's really good, and I respect that, and I'm glad that it's really enjoying stuff. But for me, it's like, oh my God, this is just so miserable and so grim. When Bridgerton, not really, not a lot's happening, but it's just like lovely to look at and lovely to, and they went to Loseley Park as well. They filmed a lot there, which was a history connection, so that was nice to see.
I think, am I watching anything like this? Just kind of an escape. I'm rewatching Poldark at the minute with Aidan Turner in it from years
Yeah.
ago, and it's like, ah, what a load of nonsense going on that I've not got to think about. It's just
Yeah, exactly. That's what everybody needs, I think, once in a while. I think it's just, especially, and if people are attractive, that always helps. Like, I don't want to see people who are miserable and sad. And like, I want joy, happiness as much as I can get it in any form. So that's why.
if you could go back in time to any event or day in history, when would it be and why?
Um, going back to the Tudors, it would be for me Anne Boleyn's coronation because I am a Boleyn fangirl to my bones. And I think that would just be such a moment. That was when everything was going right. She was at the pinnacle of everything. Her power, her love of the king, like all of the above was all had just come together all at that right moment. She thought she was having a boy. She was being crowned with the king, the monarch, the reigning monarch's crown. I think you wouldn't be able to top that, would you really? And I think it would be fun to see who was there and like who like what were people feeling? Like we know they didn't raise their caps, they didn't cheer, like whatever. But what was it like in the Abbey itself? Were people muted? Were they aghast? Were they agog at the fact that she had the crown on? Did they not care? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd love to see assess the emotional electricity in the room. I think that would be such a moment to see and to witness her ultimate triumph before. I don't say it all went downhill, but like it wasn't great after that.
Yeah, I want to see how if because obviously Eustace Shapley says like no one raises their caps and like no one cheers. Like, oh, don't worry, Eustace. I'm gonna go back in time and I'm gonna be cheering. All right. So
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Just to, and we don't know, do we? Like, oh, I don't know. I think it would just be so interesting to see because you have such skewed perceptions of everything because of Chapuis and his fiddling about with gossip and stuff like that. It'd be nice to see a neutral aspect of it, I suppose, to see it without it being tainted by it. And even what she looked like for goodness sake, like the number one thing, what she actually looked like. That there you go. That's like a number one thing as well. You want to be there to see what she looked like.
I think if I had to go back to any event for Anne Boleyn, I and Owen Emerson's convinced me of this, like why I want to go back there. What was her response to that first letter from Henry VIII? Like,
Oh
like
yeah.
I want to see her actual face reaction. She's like, okay.
And then I guess following on from that, the process of then building that, was it a brooch that she had made or a pin with the woman
Yes.
being tossed at sea and sending that back to him and being like, all right, let's do it. Like, what did she chat to her mum and her dad? Was it just off her own back? Like that would be so fun, wouldn't it, to go from like the first letter of like, oh my God, to right, like, yeah, let's do it. That would be
Yeah.
amazing thing to see, like the correlate, like, oh my gosh, if Hever could, the walls at Hever could talk, can you imagine what they've witnessed?
And finally, have you got a favorite historical fact?
I've got tons, but my favorite one of the day, which I'm really enjoying, is I did a little piece about John Dee and who was Elizabeth the First astrologer, mathematician, demonologist, spy. He did kind of all of it. He was a really, really clever man, but he would sign his communication to Elizabeth with two circles looking like eyes, saying, I've got my eyes out for you, and a seven, which obviously written down looks like 007. So he is like the grandfather of the spiral network with Walsingham. So you think, is that indeed where 007 came from? Is that, is that what Ian Fleming thought was a fun fact? But it's on all these things. I was looking at them doing research for the book. It's very clearly 007. So I thought that was really cool that that's kind of where it came from. I know other people say it's something to do with World War II something or other, but I prefer the legend that it comes from John Dee. Um, but I thought that's a really snazzy fact, and a lot of people didn't know it, so that was one of my favorites.
No, I love that fact so much, and I don't care what Fleming's excuse is. Where'd you get 007 from? John Doe. End of.
Exactly, yeah. Finish it, done. That's what it is.
Thank you so much for coming on today and discussing your brand new book, which is coming out on the 19th of Feb. So you've not got long to pre-order if you haven't yet.
Woo! Oh, it's so exciting. I can't believe it's so soon. It is ridiculous.
Thank you so much again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Her Story. If there's a historical woman who inspires you and you'd like to share her story on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch at unholytudor@gmail.com. Until next time, keep celebrating the incredible women who've shaped our world.